This is Ryan Harrison with Waterworks Lamson. The subject of this video is our new Cobalt saltwater reel. And I have Tim Volk here who's going to take us through the technical features and benefits. So take it away, Tim.
Okay. As Ryan said, this is a Cobalt. This is a saltwater specific reel designed from the ground up for saltwater use. If you can look at the spool, let you take it in a little bit. And that's the case side and the top side. On the Cobalt, it incorporates super arbor ratios, just like the Speedster. So if you notice a narrower spool, but a much larger arbor than our standard reels. Help you pick up some line in those long fights. On this reel, we did something new this year. New to us in total, called dual axis machining. Never been done before that we know of. What we do is we run the front side and the back side on different axes. So what that does for us is it allows us to keep material where we need it, up here near the foot, very thick structure right here down to the drag, and eliminate a lot of the meat in the reel down here. So in a normal reel, if you were to have this thickness up here, you would have the same thickness down here, but we're able to eliminate a lot of that thickness on the case down here. You can see it gets progressively smaller towards the bottom there. We do the same on the spool, but execute a little differently. There's no counterbalance on the spool face, and normally we just leave a chunk of material there to counterbalance the handle. On this, I did something a little bit different. If you can look at the windowing, you can see the windows get progressively smaller as it gets further away from the handle. What that does is it allows these spokes to be larger, and that added weight offsets the handle. We also do that on the spool rim, cut away more here on the chamfer and cut away less there. So what that does is it creates a spool that there's no counterbalance that's immediately evident. But once you start to rotate the spool, you realize that the porting isn't exactly centered, and it's that asymmetry that counterbalances the handle. So the next thing on this is the coating. They'll all be coated in Microlocks, just like the Micro 5, the Lightspeed Micro 5. What Microlocks is a Type 3 hard coat anodize that goes through a phase change in a proprietary process that changes the outer structure of the anodize to a crystallized layer. And what that does is it stops any types of salts or corrosive agents from getting down into the material. This finish was borrowed from the medical industry. Used it on pieces that went through autoclaves that experienced high heat and high corrosion agents. Next thing we have here, I'll show you here. This doesn't have the conventional pop-on, pop-off spool like the rest of our reels. We went to a spool nut fastening system, so a little more security than the O-ring system. So this is the spool nut flush to the face. Rotate it like that, and it's just like any other quick disconnect spool. It comes off like that. This right here is the drag housing. As you can see, the spindle stays inside the drag housing. Drag housing is completely sealed. All points of ingress are sealed with O-rings, and this has been certified waterproof, IPX8 waterproof certification to 30 meters. It's actually laser etched onto the case right here, another industry first as we know it. Inside the drag, take it off here. The drag housing unscrews like this. Inside the drag, a little bit different than what you're used to seeing. Very large spindle, larger one-way clutch. There's a cone down inside there, and it is a carbon alloy cone. So no Delrin Teflon alloy anymore. It's a carbon alloy that's temperature stable up to 500 degrees. Like I said, all of the O-rings on here are custom compounded. They are actually self-lubricating, so there's no need to take the reel apart and lubricate it. All of the O-rings, as they wear, just a little bit of lubricant comes out, which prevents them from wearing any further. One thing I did not mention earlier in the talking about the case, if you look at the foot is actually sunk down into the top of the case, something we can't do in normal reels because we just don't have enough mass up here normally. But with this extra mass, we're able to sink the foot down, which creates a much stronger structure. Also brings the reel up more towards the center axis of the rod. Kind of the same idea going with the center axis system.
Tim, if you turn the reel 90 degrees, I think we'll be able to see that foot. There you go. Perfect.
So another thing I'm staring at right now are these fasteners here. These aren't your normal fasteners. These are actually titanium Torx head screws. We have 3 of them on the reel, one here, and then one for the backside on the handle. So those fasteners are super strong, very, very corrosion resistant. Final, but not smallest detail here is a system that we developed called the set drag. What the set drag is, you'll see here, there's a screw there, and a screw there, and what is normally our dust cap actually has a slot in it. What we're able to do with the set drag is allow the user to change their origin of the drag. So there's little numbers etched all the way around the outside of the drag. You can dial it back off to 0, take the set screws out, and adjust this center knob, and that adjusts your origin. So you can set it at free spool or 1/2 pound or 1 pound drag tension to start with, and then dial up to 12 pounds full resolution. And what that works out to is a 1/2 pound per click. So each one of these little clicks is a 1/2 pound.
So it comes set at the factory at what torque range?
We'll set this at a 1/2 pound, and it'll go up to 12.5 to 13 pounds. Another addition too, the numbers are laser etched right at the base of the drag knob, but we've also machined detents on the outside. What that'll allow you to do is dial to wherever you want it to be, wherever you think you want. Say your fighting pressure, say it's 5 or 6 pounds. What you can do is you can take some paint, rub it in there, wipe it off, and it sets down in there, paint fills it. So like guys on old Charlton reels used to put little nail polish marks so they know exactly where they're at. You can actually do that on the drag knob yourself. And you can use yellow paint, red paint, green paint, your stripping pressure, your fighting pressure, and your break off pressure. So it allows you to quickly know where you're at and how much pressure you have on the fish.
So Tim, on the set drag, if it comes set factory 1/2 pound to 12.5 pounds with one rotation of the drag knob, if I wanted to adjust that to say 2 pounds starting pressure, what's the end torque going to be? Is it plus 12?
Yeah, so the full resolution is 12, full range is 12 pounds.
So I can have it 2 to 14.
Exactly, right. So you can go up to whatever you can strip off, you can go up 12 pounds from there.
Right.
What it also allows you to do, if there's any break-in in the components, which I'll talk about that too, there will be no break-in in the components. All of the internal thrust bearings are made out of a material called carbon peak, extremely expensive. I thought, for lack of a better term, I'll call it a plastic, but very expensive, very high compression strength. So none of those components will ever see any some compression or set. But if they do, or something happens in your reel and your click number 4 all of a sudden starts to feel a little light, you can recalibrate your drag back to where you want it, and you can have those consistent pressures again.
Can you show us how to change that set drag?
Right. So the first thing you'll want to do is remove the spool. Just a little bit easier with the spool off first. Dial the drag knob all the way back to 0, all the way off. And what you're going to do is remove 2 seal screws. So these little slotted screws on either side of the drag knob are actually just caps. They're a screw with an O-ring, a silicone O-ring underneath it that seals that hole. So you want to remove those with a flathead screwdriver.
Now, just for the audience, this would be the procedure if you wanted to alter the factory setting of the drag range.
So removing those seal screws is done with a small flathead screwdriver. I think this is a number 1 or a number 2. And the next, there will be an Allen key that's included with the reel. There's 2 set screws down inside there that fasten the exterior knob to the set knob in the center. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen those 2 set screws. And just till there's no pressure, it takes about a turn and a half. Now what you've done is you've loosened the exterior drag knob from the set knob. So with this set knob, with the exterior knob at 0, you'll hold it at 0, and again with a flathead screwdriver, you can dial the set knob, and what that's doing is it's setting your origin. So right there, that's probably about a ½ pound, that's about a pound, that's about a pound and a half, and so on.
So what 1/12 of a turn equals 1 pound change?
Right. So after you have it wherever you want, and what you can do is put a spool back on, and I have this out here. I won't show it right now because it's a little too involved, but I have some backing on there and a scale, and you pull off and you can find out where your origin is. And that from that point, when your origin's set, then you can remove the spool again, which you don't have to do, but it's just easier to access the screws with the spool off. And then you put your Allen wrench back in and tighten it till you feel a little bit of pressure. And we're going to do this kind of like the lug nuts on a wheel. We're going to go until just a little bit of pressure, and another, say, a ½ to quarter turn. And what that's doing is it's pushing those set screws into a groove on the set knob, and we want to do it with even pressure. You'll see a little bit of a gap around the knob. If you dial one side down too tight, it'll shift the knob off a little bit. So just do that until they're both snug and your groove is even all the way around the set knob. And then the seal screws go back in. And we'll set these at 7.5 inch-pounds, but 7.5 inch-pounds just is tight, and then 1/8 of a turn. So that seals the entire unit up again. And now your origin, where I was at a ½ pound, I'm likely at about 1.5 to 2 pounds for my my 0. And then if I went all the way up to the top, dialed that all the way up, then I'd be at 13.5 to 14 pounds.
Can you show us how to change the retrieve direction?
Right. So I don't have it here. There will be a little rubber pad that's included. It just helps getting a grip, kind of like the jar top opener you had when you were kids. Grab that, twist it back, and you unscrew it. Because the clicker is housed inside the drag unit, you need to flip the clicker at the same time as you flip the clutch. So there's 2 clicker springs in there. Not a new system. Pretty simple though. Tap this to get the clutch out. Rotate the clutch. Put it back on the spindle. And then you put the clickers back down inside the ear holes on the clutch ring, like so. Then match the clutch ring up to the keyways on there. Screw it back down. Make sure it's on there nice and tight.
Just by hand, though.
Just by hand. We'll have a rubber pad. It is stiff O-ring to keep that housing on there. We do not see a lot of torque on the housing, What we incorporated on this reel, something else to talk about, what we incorporated on this reel that we don't have on other reels is we actually have radial bearings just inside the top of the drag housing and then down inside the drag cone itself. And those radial bearings are ceramic hybrid bearings. So again, premium materials, very low maintenance, very corrosion resistant. One other thing is it's the largest handle we've put on any reel to date. Not too big, but bigger than the Speedster 4. I think that's currently the largest handle we have. A little fatter in the middle and pretty robust. That's about it for Cobalt. There's one more thing I'll show you. I'll move this black mat so you can actually see it. Cobalt will come packaged in a EVA molded case. That'll be specific to the sizes. So it'll come just like this. And the reel will actually fit right inside this custom molded travel case. Now when you get on the water, obviously you're not going to carry this on top of your rod. So we've also included a saltwater reel bag, mesh reel bag. So what this will do is it'll allow you to keep your reel from banging around in the boat, getting rash on your reel or on the boat, but still easily identify what's inside the bag, and also you'll be able to rinse your reels with them inside the bag, and this bag, it doesn't absorb any salt water or anything like that. So it'll come with all of that stuff.
Fantastic. A bargain at $1,000, yet tops out at about $800. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate the run through. There's obviously a lot going on with this reel, and this is a quick overview of the technical features. We will look forward to showing you in person.